Good morning, good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode number 3 of CIU Podcast. It's a special double benefit episode this time. We have Dr. Stevens and Dr. Pedro with us. Both of them chaired for CIU. So these are the best people. These are directly from the horse's mouth people to talk about how DRP and how projects and how research has evolved. Before I forget, my name is Dr. Moorjani. I'm the Associate Dean at CIU. So now we'll have quick introductions. Dr. Steven, would you like to go first?
So, hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Dwayne Stevens. I've been with CIU for a while now, and my focus is on student success. So, whatever I can bring you from, bring you in from point A to get you to graduation of point B, I'm more than happy to do so. Taking the time, working with your schedule. I know we have different time zone constraints, but I'm always here to help and facilitate with my students as best as I can. So, I'm here for you. Thanks for allowing me to be with you all today. Just a little bit about me, I guess. Been in education now for over 20 years in higher ed. So taught, facilitated, worked administration, so I've done many roles in higher ed. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Pedro.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Dr. Pedro Nunes. I'm from the beautiful Madeira Islands in Portugal, and I have a bit of a different career. So the first 18 years of my career, I climbed the corporate ladder until the role of managing director, and then I decided that I wanted to shift a little bit the direction of my career. I used to teach from time to time, but I started doing as a full-time job, let's say it. And these days, I participate in several DBA programs where I guide the students from the conception and development of the idea until the execution of the thesis. And I'm also a strategic advisor for several companies.
The first thing I would like to ask both of you right now is, you all have been looking at researches. You all have been part of researches. What is the new thing that, according to you, is coming out in research, basically, especially in the doctorate programs? Like, what is new?
Okay, so I can start. So research is something that the methodology itself, it hasn't evolved a lot, and my guess it's not going to change in the near future. But what change a lot are the tools that we have in our disposition. Uh, to be honest, I'm quite jealous about some of the students right now because at the time that I did my dissertation, my PhD, there was nothing like this. It's a good thing and a bad thing. So I could see that I could save a lot of time, but being in the background, knowing how things works, actually doing the equation, going to the library, I think that it gave me a lot of background, and these days it helps me to solve problems. So what I would say is that these days we have things like Mendeley to help us with the citations, and we all know that one of the main things that the jury on the defense of a thesis will always note was the differences between the references and the inside citation. So these days it's easier to do that. This technology also comes with some the downside of it is that students, instead of doing the work, instead of doing the research, they rely on AI tools, things that do the summaries of the papers, and it's okay to use it, but you cannot blindly trust it. That's always what I say to my students, because you can use it to summarize, to have a good idea, but you should go to the source of the things that you are going to use. Because if you don't go to the process, you're just fooling yourself, and the end result will not be good.
I did my thesis years back. It was so much difficult. And like, we used to have special classes to understand how data is to be tabulated, analyzed, interpreted, and constituted to just, to test your hypothesis and everything. But yeah, Dr. Stevens.
Yeah, so there's so many tools out there to be successful. In this day and age, time is of essence, right? Everything kind of move kind of smoothly, and now we have the ability to do that. There's no more getting up and, like, say, going to to the library and looking through the card catalog and looking for the exact document you're looking for. Everything's right at your fingertips, by way of your cell phone, maybe your laptop computer. So using the tools you talk about, like Mandalay and all those things, to build your citations, all that stuff is great access, great tools that we can use now. But obviously, you as a researcher have to know and have to look through it to filter, make sure you're getting the right information out of it. Like I said, you just can't rely on just what's been spit out and given to you. You certainly have to read it, make sure you understand it, make sure you understand the methodology behind it, and understand what you're doing and how you're going to apply it to your actual research yourself. So I certainly agree with that.
With the AI things and this all new softwares coming up, and every day there is new websites that are being launched to help students and to help everybody. I think what we need to understand is where to draw the line, because how hard we try, people will use it. So it's better to embrace it. But with that, we need to understand how much of it are we utilizing for our benefit and how much is being considered as plagiarism. Because I have seen this in the past where students just write a prompt, generate everything, compile it, and just send it through. Yeah.
Yeah. At higher education, we're still learning. We're still learning to live with it. We understand that Pandora's box has been opened and you can't close it, right? You can't close it.
Yeah.
So we're understanding how to live with it, how, like I said, how to, if it's a thin line between plagiarism and not plagiarism, right? So in higher education, we're still trying to figure out that marriage, that happy marriage, that happy medium that we can both can live in it together.
Also, there is there is still some benefit on going beyond the AI obvious things, because with AI, you are being funneled in one direction. So somebody knows what the algorithm is. And so we are kind of being manipulated on a certain direction. So maybe because of our research history, or maybe because something was set on the second direction, it's always good to go the old-fashioned way and go beyond AI and go straight to the source, because this way we will stand out of the crowd. Because if I was the only one having access to AI, then I would be a very rich guy, right? So nobody else would have access to it, but everybody has access to the same thing. So we should have a way to have some sort of differentiation or competitive advantage.
And think about this, that oral presentation is not AI speaking for you, it's you speaking for yourself, explaining your research. So you have to know some background. You have to be able to say, this is what I've done. This is why I did it this way. These are my results. These are my findings. This is what we can do in the future. So AI can do that for you at that moment with your presentation. So you have to know exactly what you're doing.
Normally, you just touch the points that I normally tell to my colleagues, where people are very worried. How can we detect AI? How can we detect this? There's not a perfect tool. I say, yes, there is a perfect tool. Make them do an oral presentation, and it's the perfect AI detector.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now just to piggyback on what you guys are saying, and I like oral presentations. I sit into many, and some of them are really fun, and some of them are just plain boring, and some of them are like, why am I here? Like, why? What have I done in this life to be here? Okay. While in an oral presentation, or while you are sitting for an oral defense or in presentation, what do you think are the top three things you would like to see in the presentation? And what are the three things that you would be like, no, no, this should not be there?
So for top, I want to see a deep dive in the information. Like I tell my students, I want to see that you understand exactly what you have read. And if I don't see that coming across, then like you said, there's an issue, there's a problem. I'm happy to say that most of the time they understand. Most of the time, because I set the expectation up front, they have read and done the research. They have, a full understanding of the methodology behind why these are certain theories, by looking at it through certain lenses, right? So I'm happy to say that so far, so good, right? So far, so good.
So in my case, obviously, I want to be surprised. Research tends to be boring, let's be honest. So everything that we can do to make it less boring, it's a victory. So normally when I'm preparing my students for defenses, I tell them three things. Do not read from the slides.
Yeah.
Use them as a guideline. Yeah, I know that is kind of a safe port. You're kind of nervous, but do your best not to read from the slides. And two other things. Start strong. And I'm a big fan of starting with a question, with a kind of a teaser to grab people's attention. So something like,
So,
have you ever thought why when this happens, this tends to happen? And then you get everybody's attention. Then you go through the defense, and at the end, you have to finish strong again. And in some cultures, this is kind of difficult because, oh, people think, oh, I don't want to brag about what I'm doing. But that's if there is a time in life where it is okay to market yourself and to sell your work, it's when you're on your oral defense. So I normally tell my students not to sell themselves short, and if they have important findings, they should highlight them on the defense.
yeah, let your personality show through your defense as well. Remind them that we've all had to do this. We've all had to do this to get to where we are now. So you're not alone. People have done it before you. People do it after you. Take your time. Show your personality. Have fun with it. This is the time you really get to, like I said, display what you have done, your work that you've cherished for the past year or 2 years, whatever it's been.
Well, the three things I tell my students when they're doing the oral presentation defense is, first of all, it should not be death by PowerPoint. It should not be a PowerPoint presentation with like million things into it. No. Keep it concise, keep it on point, and explain the things that you want to stress on. Okay. Second thing is, I tell them always drink a glass of water before the presentation. Keep a glass of water next to you because you might need it. Okay. And the last thing I tell them is, you know, a very good way to understand research is like a hamburger. The top bun is very nice. Then we have the juicy and the meaty part, and the bottom bun becomes very soggy. So the research has now become like this. So when we start the research with the problem, with the review of literature, with the questions, with the hypothesis, everything is very nice. And then we come to the data analysis, and that's the main part of the research. And our conclusions, basically what we have done, what future suggestions we are leaving out for people to take forward, what were the limitations of our research. Everybody just tries to dial it down like in like 1 point or maybe just 2 points. So that just becomes makes the bottom bun much more soggy. So I tell all my students, reverse the hamburger. I need to see your conclusion first. I need to see your limitations. I need to see what you are suggesting future researchers to take it forward. This is the target of your research. This is what people want to look at. So I tell them, like, maybe something that you can use in your oral presentation is start with the bottom. Make them, this is what you found. These were the limitations. These were the case that you did when you find it. And then you can talk about what your problem was and how you reached there. So these are just three things that I suggest. Maybe everybody has a different method. Maybe my method might be proven wrong for some students, but for many it was right.
Yeah.
Well, not bad advice, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Before we wrap this up, one last thing that I want your insights on is nowadays with the DRP projects coming up, which is basically a new form of research which enhances students' availability towards his problem and also ensuring that he graduates quickly, he has the degree, he wants to progress in his career. What are your views on that? Like, how do you think that this is the new phenomena which will be popularized very quickly, or all the universities around the world should start offering them because this is new and people should just jump on the new board?
I particularly like the framework and like the rubrics and stuff that we do to sort of get them from start to finish. Having that guideline that peaks to sort of walk them through, just as long as you adhere to what the sections are, what's in the sections, this is a perfect roadmap from start to finish. And I think people want to see that progression. They want to be able to see that roadmap, if you will, to get from start A to point B. Particularly in our new learning environment, where we're all kind of remote. Online is great, but we're not in a classroom together,
Yeah.
or not on campus together where I can just come to your office and talk to you. So when I have those questions, I just rely on, this is the format, this is what I need to do to go from start to finish, and maybe add some inputs to make it, kind of resonate with me a little bit more. But I think that's perfect, kind of going to that kind of formatted structure that here you go from start to finish. Just follow these points and you'll reach the overarching goal, which is completion of graduation.
Well, actually, I like to compare the way we teach with the way that I did my PhD, and it is completely different because I did my PhD in a public university. I'm from Portugal, but I did it in Spain. So I had to chase my professor all the time,
Yeah.
and I sent her emails asking five things. She replied one. At some point, I just got fed up with it, and I said, "Okay, I'll do it. I'll do the thesis on my own, without knowing, without guidelines, without anything." So I was radio silent for about like 2 months, and
Mm.
after 2 months, I sent her 150 pages of what I thought it was a thesis. It was nothing similar to the final result, but she was so surprised. She said, "Oh, nobody ever done this with me. Like 150 pages, how did this happen?" But it was like 150 pages of ways of not doing a good thesis, but it was a basis. And during the process, I did I did the work. So I was more familiar with the data. I was more familiar with the concepts, with the literature review, etc. Bringing this to what we do today, it's night and day, guys. So instead of climbing the mountain and just looking at the top of the mountain, you say like, okay, so we are just going from point A to point B and then B to C and so on and so on. So I think that this method, first, I do believe that students need some kind of structure to hold on to. And then I think that in terms of motivation, the way we do it and the way we slice the whole process, it's much more convenient for everybody, even for us in terms of evaluating.
No, I do. I completely agree with you. And the same thing happened to me when I was doing my thesis. But I have chaired students who have done proper PhDs, like dissertations for 5 years, kind of. The thesis. But I think the how DRP is changing the game is because we have a lot of students, a lot of people who want to move further in their career, but they all are working professionals and they cannot invest 5 years or 6 years time into their dissertation. So DRP is basically an equivalency of a doctorate degree. You get it at the same time, but it basically concises the components that we are looking into. So it makes it much more easier, much more structured, and much more understandable for the students. So that's just my two pennies on the thought. But the last thing, I think I said the last thing before we wrapping up, but this is the last thing before we wrap up. One advice that you would like to give to a research student.
Hmm. Know your information. Dive deep in literature. Read about theories. Understand the process you're about to get a part of, and partner with your chair. I mean, what we're here is your partner, your biggest cheerleader, your biggest advocate. Don't see us as a barrier. We may give you a lot of feedback. Most of the time you may not want the feedback, but we're here to actually see you succeed, and we actually invest in your success. Your success is our success. So trust in what we're trying to tell you. We won't say the wrong direction, but know what you're talking about, know your theories, and know what you want to research, and kind of dive into literature and start reading. Start reading.
I will keep it very simple. So we live in this day and age where everybody seems to know everything without doing research. Everybody comments the movie without seeing the movie. Everybody comments the book without reading the book. Everybody talks about the person without knowing the person. So on research, the one advice that I have is, and going back to Dr. Stephen's point, is trust the process. We are very, very fast to judge. We are very fast to jump onto conclusions, and research and the scientific research is actually the opposite of that. So we have to prove, we have to frame it, we have to put it on a context or in a background. So this is not a fast, intuitive process. It's something that has to be proved over and over and over. So my one advice would be trust the process.
That's a very good advice. It covers everything. It's like a blanket advice. Trust the process. I think one thing that I would tell anybody who comes up to me and asks that I want to do a research, I'll be like, do not copy references because we check them. Do not just take it from Wikipedia, from somebody else's paper and add it to yours because we go and we check the references if they're aligned or not. Huh? Well, perfect. Thank you so much, doctors, for being here, It was a pleasure hosting you both. And I hope that I would be seeing more of you in our podcast soon. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you all.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
invitation. It was a pleasure, and I really liked the conversation. So I would stay here for more 2 hours more.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay.
you.